What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Comic Breakdown. In this video, we are jumping into X-Men Red issue number 11, coming out of the events of Sins of Sinister. Following up on Immortal X-Men issue number 10, we have mutant kind that are finding themselves in a very odd position. Magneto has died. Sinister's backdoor infiltration into the resurrection process has compromised several key members on the Quiet Council. And so with Krakoa and Arakko really facing growing pressure from both external and eternal threats, the future of mutant kind has never been more unclear. And you're gonna want to make sure that you watch this video in its entirety. The very last page is extremely telling on what is about to come to Arakko and Krakoa. We thought Sins of Sinister had changed things, but something much bigger is on the horizon. So make sure you guys have subscribed to the channel, make sure that you like this video, and with that being said, let's dive into this breakdown. Alright gang, so as we dive into this issue, we are picking up with an actual date night, as we pick up on the shoreline of Arakko, what now is referred to as Planet Arakko. We are picking up with Craig Marshall, and this guy, he's a NASA astronaut. He has a doctorate in astrophysics and another in soil and crop sciences. And this may be the most ordinary man that Storm has ever gone on a date with. This is where we see the stunning, the beautiful, the talented, the Omega level mutant Storm coming down in her absolutely beautiful dress. Her and Craig are about to have their first date. And so the two of them begin to talk. They begin discussing everything that he has been through, everything that led him to Arakko. You see, during Uranos' attack, he had saved some mutant children. He was willing to give up his life for them, willing to do this without a second thought. And while this was a completely selfless act, this caught the attention of Storm, thinking that maybe this man is notable enough to be able to go out on a date with. But everything that he has learned from Arakko came from Commander Brand. Brand currently on the run. Nobody knows where she went. If she does surface again, mutant kind is going to bring a hammer down on top of her. But he's beginning to learn that this world, it has so much to offer. But Craig has also been a fan of the X-Men long before the era of Krakoa. When Krakoa was founded, he was really hoping that this would shine some good light on the X-Men, everything that they have done for the world. But in the middle of this conversation, we have Charles Xavier who interrupts. He is telling Storm that they need to cut this meeting short, that he needs her to join him on Krakoa at once, because they need to talk about Magneto. Storm very reluctant to do so. She apologizes to Craig, saying that they will have to catch up more on the second date. This is what takes us to Southern Arakko Prime. We have Nova, we have Kobach, and we have DaCosta, enjoying the warm waters of Arakko. The three, they sit and they discuss. Nova finding it very hard to just relax in general. He knows that there is so much going on out there. He knows that Arakko has been targeted by some heavy hitters, but his therapist insisted that if he didn't take at least 6 hours off each and every week, then his therapist would quit on him. So here he is hot tubbing while the galaxy burns. Or at least that is how Nova sees it. But as this conversation continues on, we have Kobach who says that he must leave them. You see, Kobach, he has a battle in the Circle Perilous. This is the final conflict for the seat of victory. With Arakko's council being slim in numbers, they are now working to fill those spots back up. And Kobach has no plans to yield. This means that he is either going to win and he is going to earn his place on the Great Ring of Arakko, or he will be dead. The only thing he asks of them is that if I do not return, please remember me. As he makes his exit, Nova does ask how many seats are left open, and there is only a couple of seats left. Under the law of Logos, there are preliminary events before battle in the Circle, tests of fitness for the role. The new seat of Dreams is at the stage, but the seat of Stalemate was decided yesterday. It appears that the seat had been filled by Lycan, and DaCosta compares him to an Omega level Wolverine. that imagine an Omega level Wolverine and then double it. But while they have this discussion, that is when a giant beam comes down. It is the external gate that comes from other worlds. And with this giant beam going up into the sky, it only means one thing. There is something coming through, and it is something big. DaCosta telling everybody it is time to suit up. They get ready for whatever is about to fall upon them. This is what picks us up with Charles and Storm, with Charles apologizing for interrupting what he thought was an important meeting. And at this point, Storm has become very irritated with Charles, the man he has become, almost a whimpering dictator of sorts. And even more to this day, Storm resents him for what he did all those years ago when he had first recruited Storm. He told her that she was living in a fantasy. At the time, she was young enough to believe this, to believe that people she was saving, they were worth less than helping Charles. But Charles does wonder, was he wrong? Because in that time, how many times have the X-Men saved the world? Saved the universe, all because Storm was there. And while it does make sense, the greatest good for the greatest number, life as mathematics. But there is no mathematician deciding who plays the remainder in their cold equations. This is when they get on the conversation of Eric, with Storm reminding him that he now goes by Max. He went back to his birth name. For Charles, this is a little difficult because Eric was his oldest friend. He knew him as well as he knew himself. But what he didn't know, who he didn't know, was Max. Magneto never let him meet him, and that is why Storm is here today. There is something that Charles needs to know. When Magneto died, Charles was currently engaged in psychic warfare on a scale that nobody could imagine. He did feel the death of Magneto. And at the time, he believed that he didn't have the time for the fine details. Or at least this is what he told himself. The truth is, he flinched. He couldn't look at it. He didn't have the strength. But now he is asking Storm, with him now being the sole captain of the ship of state, and everything going on with Sinister, how he infected him with his psyche. He needs to know, what were Magneto's last words? And Storm says that those were private. They are not for her to discuss with anybody. And while he says that those are private from me, Storm says most of all they are private from you. You are going on this whole tangent about being the sole captain, like a king on the throne, as if the Quiet Council are merely just there for you to summon. This is when Charles starts to go a little bit off the hinge, because now he understands that Max did say something. Not sure if he saw Sinister in him when he left the council or not. And while Storm tries to calm him down, trying to say that she understands how he feels, while he tries to give orders, while he tries to say that he could take those thoughts from her mind right here, right now without asking, we see him go off the hinge. Storm lets him know that she is no longer an X-Men. She is no longer led by Charles. While she does respect his grief, she has to ask, in what capacity do you think you can order me around? With Charles saying that he could simply just read her mind if he wanted to, she says, go ahead. Why don't you try? And when Charles goes to read her mind, this is where he is shot back. She repelled the psychic probe. And Charles is the one that taught her how to do this. Taught all of them how to do this. It is called the Red Triangle, a psychic defense protocol, one to be called upon if they ever face a telepath with evil intentions, or one who has lost control. And so she has to ask, what has happened to you? And right now, Charles is afraid. After everything that Sinister had done, seeing that timeline, seeing them manipulated, after the Council massacre, he cannot be sure if Sinister still has a grip or not. And Resurrection being based on his genetic database, his evil is the foundation of their greatest good. If their Eden has a serpent, it wears a diamond, or a spade, or a club, or a heart. Either way, they are surrounded by enemies within and without. Moira had lost her faith, turned against them. Magneto lost his and turned away. Charles fears that if he loses his faith, this nation will not survive. And Charles can't help but feel guilty for all of the timelines that Sinister has birthed and destroyed. All of the secrets that have been kept from him. If he would just peered into the mind, pried a little bit into the mind of Sinister, he may have been able to discover all of this and stop it all. But he also understands this is how Sinister had used his power, to violate private thoughts to control. But then Charles thinks back to all the times that he has crossed this line himself. Just now, he did it in an attempt of anger. So now he is questioning everything. Is he Sinister? Is this him? What is the difference between the two of them? This is when Storm goes on to say that Magneto was thinking of you when he died. He asked Storm to watch him, not because he thought he might be Sinister, because Charles is Charles. Of the three who shared the dream of Krakoa, Charles is the last. And rather than allowing his dream to pass on to other hands, he is trying to bear this weight alone, and it is crushing him. And while Storm would like to think that a measure of concern lay at the root of Magneto's request, Magneto was Charles's friend. But after today, Storm is not. This is when she tells him, don't take the gate to Arakko ever again. And this is what takes us to the external gate of Arakko, with Nova and DaCosta standing by. Nova does a scan, and whatever is coming through is real bad. Something is cutting through space, carving a path between realities. As it begins to flare up, they prepare, with a huge blast sending them backwards. A person standing there after it all clears, asking if they are of Arakko. But what they see puts them at pause. The man carrying a sword. The white sword has fallen. 99 of his champions were with him. This is the last 100th champion. He brings the legendary weapon Purity as proof of his last words. What the white sword had said is to tell them all, that Genesis is coming. And as the smoke clears, it is revealed that this is John Ironfire. And that will be the end of this issue. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. A very good issue. First, we start off with Storm actually going on a date. Ever since T'Challa, she really hasn't found time for love or for dates or any of that in between. And as we see, she still doesn't necessarily have time for it. With Charles pulling her away, we see that Charles is breaking. He is trying to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders, questioning every move, every motive that he makes. And in doing what he just did, he cut ties with probably somebody he shouldn't have cut ties with. Storm no longer wants anything to do with Charles. At this point, he is completely cut off. But the biggest revelation is that Genesis is on her way. My assumption is that she is coming for the Great Ring. She is coming to take her place among the Council of Arakko. And then we have the revelation of John Ironfire. The White Sword has fallen. This is not an easy feat. Maybe Genesis did this to ensure that the White Sword couldn't take any place on the Great Ring. But we learn the origins of John Ironfire. He is one of the White Sword's 100 soldiers. The ones that lay waste, that almost no force can fight off. He is the last surviving member, wielding the White Sword Purity weapon. He has made his way to Arakko. He has come with a warning that Genesis is coming. But now that Genesis is coming, does this also mean that we are gonna have Apocalypse showing back up? Let me know your thoughts, let me know your theories. If you would like to get completely caught up on everything going on with this series, be sure to check out the link in my description, as well as the top of this video. It will get you completely caught up on everything going on with this series. If you would like to support the channel, you can always do so by joining the channel membership. Much like Patreon, having multiple different tiers, from $1 to $50, from loyalty badges to comics every single month. Not only does this help out the channel tremendously, but you are getting tons of perks in the process. If you are unable to do this, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like this video, hit that notification bell, and with that being said, until the next breakdown.